Alright, people. Would you believe me if I told you that when I first started this YouTube channel, the whole point of it was to talk about the evil within? Now, it's not rocket science to look through my channel and go, you've done a pretty piss poor job of talking about the evil within. I don't know, somewhere along the way, I just turned into another one of those channels that talks about Resident Evil constantly. And I'm not opposed to that. Resident Evil's like my first love when it comes to video games. Like, it's just a franchise I'll always return to. But the point that I was trying to get across with this channel was that the evil within gets no love. Now, times have changed. When I originally set out to make this channel, believe it or not, Evil Within was not a liked video game. And I've definitely seen some change in the communities as the years have gone on. And that's definitely a good thing. I ain't complaining about that. Someone did my job for me. Because, you know what? I love the Evil Within. And it wasn't love at first sight, by any means. When I first originally played it, believe it or not, was it like some kind of special event? Some kind of like invite-only, play it before it ever released, weird Bethesda event. It's not like it was some kind of press event, but yeah, you had to apply to get into a shop which was open at like midnight, and they had demo discs. Well, not demo discs, it was kind of like there was a shit ton of Xbox Ones lined across the wall with Evil Within ready to go. And that was the first time I played it, and I gotta be honest, when I first played it, my initial impression was, oh no. I was like, wow, this game's pretty janky. There's something wrong here, like the frame rate's pretty bad. I was like, there's still a few months before it comes out. Let's just hope that they iron that stuff out. And hopefully the finished product is a lot better. So release rolls around. I get it day one because had to. And it's still not very good. It's still janky. The frame rate's terrible. It's letterboxed. And I was like, oh, in every 5 seconds you're dying from some cheap death. And it's like, oh, I can't take it. I can't take it anymore. What has happened? Like, this is not what I signed up for. This isn't what I expected. This is from Shinji Mikami. Like, what is he doing? Why has he made something so awful? and then a year goes by and I go, you know what? Maybe I was too harsh on that game. Let's give it another chance. And the rest's history. I fell in love with it. I knew what to expect. I feel like the second playthrough of Evil Within is very important. You don't fall in love on the first playthrough. You kind of hate the experience. You're like, oh, this is just kicking my ass. It's pissing me off. It's janky. And to be fair, it had been patched when I played it the second time, so the frame rate wasn't anywhere near as bad. The jankiness wasn't as bad. It wasn't as glitchy, if you will. It's still janky. It's still glitchy. I am not saying that it's none of those things. It absolutely is. But you could turn the letterbox stuff off, and it just, all the cliche of it, it was like, it's such a horror fan's game. It's like, if you like horror movies, horror video games, it's just been all flung into a blender, twisted and spat out, and you get the evil within. You do. It's batshit crazy. The storyline makes zero sense. If you try to put things together to try and make sense of it, you'll just be like, you're giving me a headache. And don't get me wrong, I'm not complaining about that. I actually kind of like that. It's a little bit more up for interpretation, even though the interpretation isn't like Silent Hill levels where it's like, this means this and this means that. It's just so much like, did that really happen? Is that real? Does this affect that? It's so stupid, the story, but it's good to talk about, you know? The enemy designs are insane. I love the visuals. I love how dark and gritty and disgusting everything is. It looks like a Saw movie, and it's just, I don't know, it ticks all the boxes for me. I don't know why. Well, I do know why I didn't like it the first time, like I said, but I feel like if if I'm the same type of person you are, say you're watching this and you're like, you know what, Evil Within sucked, I hated that game the first time I played it or whatnot. Maybe you're like me. Maybe you're like, you need to give it that second chance. And when you play it the second time, you're like, whoa. Something just clicks, man. And it's good. Now, don't get me wrong. Evil Within could really do with either a full-on remake or a remaster with, you know, like quality of life improvements, because the camera's janky, the aiming's janky. Like, it's one of those games where it doesn't matter what you're pointing at when you shoot, Seb's bullet's going to go left or right for no apparent reason other than to just be janky for combat's sake. The animations are terrible sometimes. Have you seen this guy run upstairs? It's so stupid, and it does that a lot. There's a lot of weird animations and jank, and I feel like the game would benefit if the camera was just stuck to Seb's back instead of being like kind of like spinning around on the spot. There's just something janky about that in today's games, where I think in third person you need the camera kind of glued to the Batman, like The Last of Us does. But the Evil Within is that type of game where it's a stealth horror action game. I know it gets lumped into the survival horror camp, it does, and it's definitely not crazy with the combat sections, but it's not crazy with backtracking either. It's not crazy with puzzles. It doesn't have any of, like, you're not going to be sitting there running around a section going like, what do I do next, how do I solve this? It's pretty easy. It's very Resident Evil in that regard, but it's very linear too, and you're always going from point A to point B. So it's very action horror based, like Resident Evil 4, like Dead Space. I don't like to lump it in with the survival horror games. It's more action horror if you ask me, but if you go in with the right mentality, you might fall in love with it, man. I've really got to do a better job of talking about this franchise, because I feel like, God, I would love it to come back, man. Will that ever happen? I'm not sure. And obviously Microsoft bought it now, so it's kind of like it's stuck in limbo at the minute. There's nothing being said about it. We've got no news of remakes, remasters, sequels. Nothing is being done with the Evil Within IP. And with a game like Hi-Fi Rush that's just come out from Tango Gameworks, the studio that makes this, bear in mind Shinji Mikami's left. It's not the point. It's just one of those things where it's like, because that game got so sucked off from the critics, is the Evil Within done? It's a damn shame if this is the end of the Evil Within, if we don't get anything further from it, because I think there's more here. I feel like you can do more with it. I do like the sequel. I know people don't like the sequel, or you get some people who like the sequel and don't like the first game. I'm gonna have to talk about the sequel too, and we're gonna have to get into that, because I feel like a lot of people don't play Evil Within 2 because they didn't like Evil Within 1, and then there's people who play Evil Within 2 and they're thinking, oh, I might like Evil Within 1. They're so different. Even though they're following the same storyline, sort of, at least the same main character, they're so different. And I get why people love, hate, vice versa with these games, because they don't even feel like the same IP. It's really, really bizarre. But Evil Within 2 is also a quality game. And Evil Within 2 definitely fits in the category of, I'd say, more mainstream, if you will. Like, you don't have to be like a hardcore horror fan to get into that game. That's more like, you know, like your Stephen King kind of horror, if that makes any sense. Not quite Stephen King. You'll understand what I'm trying to say when I get to Evil Within 2, but my point is, this channel was made for the Evil Within, and I really should make some more Evil Within content, so that's exactly what I'm gonna do. At least try to do. Who knows what happens. Anyway, people, let me know if you've played the Evil Within. Let me know if you're gonna play the Evil Within. Let me know if you love, hate, or if you like the sequels. Do you want more from it? Just let me know how you feel about the Evil Within. I feel like we need to build some kind of Evil Within little fan bubble, if you will, on this channel. Okay, people, that's all I got. I'll catch you later.